It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Anyone can bake bread, but it takes something special to rock it. This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast. This episode is brought to you by Dave's Killer Bread, champions of killer taste, killer texture, along with killer nutrition. Dave's Killer Bread is the organic bread you can eat on its own if you want to. Add your favorite sandwich fixings, and you've got yourself an elevated eating experience that you won't find anywhere else. So make sure you visit daveskillerbread.com to learn more and do what my family and I do. Look for Dave's Killer Bread in the bread aisle of your local grocery store. That's Dave's Killer Bread, bread amplified.
Yet another juicy weekend of NHL action means your Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast is even juicier, aside from all the waiver wire targets that you need. We got to talk about Patty Waugh, New York Islanders, new bench boss, the Edmonton Oilers adding Corey Perry, and everything else you need to know that's affecting your squad. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab to your daily source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, going with a little solo episode with your boy, Flip Livingstone, holding it down. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Giddy up, my friends, because Mondays, we know they're critical. We are well past the halfway point. Well, we're past the halfway point. Don't hold me to it. Lots of exciting things going on in the NHL. And I'm going to start with the two biggest pieces of news right off the top of the episode. Corey Perry, added by the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe not a whole ton of fantasy value in Corey Perry right away, but we still want to talk about it because the Edmonton Oilers just set a Canadian franchise team record, 13 straight wins. My goodness, we got to talk about them. And the New York Islanders may be on the other side of the puck, not playing good hockey right now. I had it up a second ago. They're struggling right now in that Metro, 2-6-2. They hire Patrick Waugh. This is a very intriguing signing, a name that has been out there. It's going to have an impact on this team, and that means if you have fantasy pieces on the Islanders, it's going to impact you as well. I'll break that down. Waiver wire, of course. Monday's meat and potatoes. I've got some very intriguing players on some really good schedules for this week, and I'm going to break that down for you guys in a minute. Monday's bets, you know you're not getting out of here without a couple of locks from your boy. So I'm going to throw those on the board for tonight's 6-game NHL slate. Let's get right into it, my friends. Like I said, huge shout out to all our listeners, everydayers. I got to show that love because I'm feeling it. The comments, the feedback. We're up the podcast charts right now, and we wouldn't be doing it without y'all. Continue to smash that subscribe button. Please drop us that 5-star review. It means a lot to both Steele and I. He'll be back tomorrow. Now, Corey Perry. Before all of this off-ice incident, we don't really, player had a lot going on off the ice. We don't really know a whole ton about it other than he was dealing with some ish. And he's going through it, and now he's ready to go. But he had 9 points in 16 games, 8 block shots, 11 hits, 12 penalty minutes. And that was on a really bad Chicago team. Corey Perry can still get it done at both ends of the ice. He's an antagonist. He gets under the opponent's skin. He is also a playoff veteran who has gotten it done. Stanley Cup champ with the Ducks. I think that was all the way back in maybe 07 or something crazy like that. 07. Wow, I'm pretty good. Dallas Stars, Montreal Canadiens, and the Lightning. 3 runs with those teams, all resulting in a Stanley Cup loss. The Edmonton Oilers, this is the more intriguing angle because it's going to make sense that he gets run out there on that third line in Edmonton. I don't know if I'm even going to say anything about his fantasy value until I want to see this guy skate. I need to see who he's going to get deployed with. Obviously, a natural right winger. Derek Ryan's on that right side on the third line. He is going to be some bottom 6 support. But no offense to Warren Fogle, maybe he slots up a little bit. If he starts to play with Leon Draisaitl, guys and gals, that immediately becomes something we have to pay attention to. Not only is he going to a winner, he is a winner, and he is a player that is still proven to be effective at both ends of the ice. And I just mentioned he fills out the peripherals nicely. So once we see his deployment, once we see a little bit more from Corey Perry, because this is, Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening news, still a report, not official, but it's looking like it is, then you can maybe decide a little bit more about what the fantasy value is with Corey Perry. But I got to bring it up. Just like I have to bring up Patty Waugh, one of my favorite players to watch growing up. This is a guy who has clearly got what it takes to be behind an NHL bench. His name has been out there. It's been mentioned for a number of teams, and I think the New York Islanders have done a very good job of getting their guy. Lou Lamoriello in the front office, bit of a quiet, cerebral, patient, calm individual. Not saying Patty Waugh isn't cerebral, but he ain't calm and he is not patient. And I think this is exactly what this New York Islanders team needs to light a little bit of a fire under players like Anders Lee, maybe even Pierre Engvall, some of these peripheral fantasy pieces that have disappointed this year. Yeah, of course, none of those players are draftable. But I got my eyes double peeled on this New York Islanders team because I did my Islanders research today, my friends, before I shout out Patty Waugh. Good power play, 10th best in the NHL. Yeah, I went down the rabbit hole, my friends, and doing New York Islanders research, no offense, Islanders fans, isn't exactly the spiciest. Anyhow, bad penalty kill, right near the bottom of the league, 23rd, 24th best. And they struggle on the road. They got to figure that out. They allow way too many shots on net. I had that up as well. I believe they're right there at the top of the league. They allow a lot of shots against per game, 35 shots against per game. And I know everyone out there knows how much I love Sorokin. He is a nasty goaltender. He's going to love have Patty Waugh behind the bench. They got to tighten that up, and they just don't. All those issues, not enough offense. So can Patty Waugh solve all those issues right now in a half season? No, he cannot. But I think given their struggles and given this little shot in the arm from a coach that is clearly passionate and can get it done. First year in the NHL, 112 points for the Colorado Avalanche, a record of 52 wins at the time, and he won the Jack Adams Award. That's all you really need to hear. Oh, and for the Quebec Major Junior League with the Quebec Ramparts, couple of championships as well. And in the NHL, 130 and 92-24 record in 246 regular season games. Is Patrick Waugh the savior in New York? Probably not. But this is a really, really good start for a team that, hey, with a goaltender that good, players like Barzal, Dobson, Horvat, those kinds of key pillars, yeah, they're not exactly a dynamo, but they're close to being a team that's more than good enough to go on a run. That's the takeaway here, because maybe they do just that over the next couple of weeks, meaning maybe even Paul Mary, Anders Lee, like I said, maybe Brock Nelson takes it up a notch. I'm intrigued at seeing what this firing does because sometimes it can get teams going. It can get those players going. We're going to get the rest of this episode rolling. I got all of my waiver targets coming up around the break. Monday's 6-game betting board. We got to talk about it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Shout out to eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more, whether you're into speed, power, or style. eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts are guaranteed to fit your ride every time, your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, baby, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Anyone can bake bread, but it takes something special to rock it. This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast. This episode is brought to you by Dave's Killer Bread, champions of killer taste, killer texture, along with killer nutrition. Dave's Killer Bread is the organic bread you can eat on its own if you want to. Add your favorite sandwich fixings, and you've got yourself an elevated eating experience that you won't find anywhere else. So make sure you visit daveskillerbread.com to learn more and do what my family and I do. Look for Dave's Killer Bread in the bread aisle of your local grocery store. That's Dave's Killer Bread, bread amplified.
Guys, much love for tuning in. Solo Monday episode. Not a lot of the season left. I know it's 40 change games in. It's feeling like we're running out of time, and that's why you gotta be having your finger on the pulse for this waiver wire kind of next, 4 to 6 weeks. It's going to make or break your squad. I'm taking a look at Joel Farabee, a player that Steele has highlighted a number of times. Joel Farabee right now is on a 5-game heater, 4 goals, 2 assists. He's doing a little bit of everything. And I think what I wanted to mention, number one, about Joel Farabee before I get into this a little bit, I'm loving this line right now with Morgan Frost and Cam Atkinson. I know John Tortorella's, gets a little creative at times, but this line seems to be sticking right now. Little sip of the agua. Thank you very much. And Joel Farabee is a player that last year obviously disappointed, but this year, 36 points in 46 games, 30 penalty minutes, 103 shots on net, couple of game winners. Ice time creeping up slowly. You know how Torts rolls. He's got to earn that at both ends of the ice every single shift. So sometimes I'm still seeing a little bit of that laziness that I saw in his game last year that really hindered his ability to be an effective fantasy piece. And obviously last year he was not. 39 points in 82 games and already about to eclipse that amount of points. Shout out to Joel Farabee. Percentage-wise, 43 on ESPN, up 13% in the last 7 days. 46 on Yahoo. They play 3 games this week, the Flyers. Not the best. Tampa Bay, Boston, Detroit. But I actually still really like Farabee. He's cooking right now, and I'm willing to roll the dice because this Philly team is pesky. And I know that's a tough lineup, but they're very responsible in their own end. And very quietly, Samuel Ersson and Carter Hart are playing their butts off. I was going to say hearts out. That's not funny. They're playing their butts off right now, and I actually really like Sammy Ersson as well. Don't want to go down the well. Joel Farabee, he's been impressing me. I like it as a little offensive bump this week, and if it isn't this week, double circle it over the next couple, and I think Farabee is going to be one of those guys that continues to have just as good of a second half as the first. On to a D-man now for you, trying to spread it out a little bit. And again, I think this is a player both Steele and I have brought up, but this is what I do on this show, guys. I come on here and I try to give you the honest takes. This isn't just lip service. These are players that we really, really like. And Brock Faber is right there at the top of my list. First of all, right on FanDuel right now, after Connor Bedard and Luke Hughes, minus 180 for Connor Bedard, plus 480 for Luke Hughes. For the Calder is Brock Faber at plus 700. And that's a sneaky little wager that's going to get a little bit of my money. Right now, Brock Faber is impressing. Jared Spurgeon is also now on the shelf long-term. I believe he might actually miss the season. I don't know what that whole prognosis is. Drop me in the comments. Let me know how far off I am. 25 points so far for a 21-year-old Maple Grove, Minnesota home cooking boy. Ice time. Almost at 25 minutes a night already. He's a horse. 70 shots on net, 20 penalty minutes. He does a little bit of everything well, not afraid to throw the body around. 32 hits, 80-plus block shots. Get all over Brock Faber, guys. Right now, I'm telling you, he is not only a fantasy piece, he is just solid on the ice, both ends. He can bring it offensively. He can eat minutes. I really think with confidence, you're going to see this guy be a top pairing, if not number one defenseman for a very, very long time in this NHL. And that they don't go around very often. So, and I got to get the keeper dynasty plug in here. Speaking of being consistent, Brock Faber might already be a keeper headed into next season. Actually, scratch that. He is a keeper. If he's out there, go out and grab him. 35% on Yahoo, up 10% in the last week. 35% on ESPN, up 10% in the last week. That part was true. 49% on Yahoo. And perhaps why I'm liking it the most this week, Minnesota playing better as well. Nashville, Washington, and Anaheim. I don't think it gets much better. No disrespect to Charlie Lindgren and what's going on in Washington, but I don't think it gets much better in terms of an advantageous week. Brock Faber must add this week. One more player, and then I got a goalie who gets an honorable mention. And then, of course, I'm wrapping this bad boy up with bets. But a player that I actually have had on my team for most of the year, and I added off the waiver wire, and he hasn't gone anywhere, is Charlie Coyle. And I think, actually, now that I'm saying this for the third time, all of these are guys that we've mentioned. Right now, it's Charlie Coyle in the middle between David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand. Stop right there. Number 2. Boston, much to my chagrin, and probably Steelers as well. Actually, most definitely Steelers as well. Boston Bruins, absolutely cooking right now. 6-1-3, 4 in their last 10. 4 straight wins. They just hung a 9-piece on the Montreal Canadiens, which was obviously embarrassing, but also kind of nice for us Leafs fans who are in the doldrums. We don't want to talk about that. The Leafs are a mess. Anyhow, Charlie Coyle, number 1, centering that top line. You got to pay attention. And number 2, not only is Boston cooking, but he's put up points in 4 straight games. And I look at his stat lines just the other night. 1 goal, 1 assist, +2, 2 penalty minutes, 5 shots on net. 3 shots on net. He does a little bit of everything well. And the fact that he is on that top line, centering those 2 studs, immediately you need to go out there and take a look at Charlie Coyle if you need a center or if you need a forward offensive bump. 54% on ESPN, 39 on Yahoo. Bruins play 4 games this week, my friends. And I know it's Winnipeg and Carolina, but then they round out the week against Ottawa and Philly. So a little bit of a mixed bag, but 4 games. Bruins on a heater. Charlie Coyle available. My goodness me, go out there and make sure you take a look at him. I got one more player that I will bring up. It's a goaltender right around the break. And, of course, Monday's 6-game betting board. Got to give a little bit more love to today's sponsors because today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL postseason is in full swing, and there's so much time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 wager. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so secure, easy to use, safe, and many different ways to lay bets. Live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay over in the Parlay Hub. The best way to find all of your popular parlays and a whole lot more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a touchdown. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Hey everyone, Chris from Locked On Avalanche here. If you like using debit over credit, I just learned about something that's definitely a game changer. Discover Cashback Debit. It's a checking account that rewards everyone with cash back on everyday purchases, which means you can get cash back on NHL tickets or head-to-toe hockey gear to make this season a total win. Check out eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC.
My friends, you know these solo episodes are a little bit hectic for your boy. Trying to run the 1s and 2s back here. Shout out to Steele. He'll be back tomorrow. Shout out to all of our supporters. Shout out to the Locked On Network. I'm going to stop with the shout outs, I promise. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Smash that subscribe, 5-star review. Hit us in the comments. Love the feedback. You know the deal. Dan Vladar, a goaltender that at times I'm unsure a little bit of how he's in the NHL. And then other times he looks like he is the prototypical backup. 7-7-2 this year. 3.27 goals against isn't pretty. 888 save percentage is not pretty. But I really liked his game the other night against Edmonton. Even though they lost, he made a number of nice big saves. He's been pretty solid over the last 5 games. And I know his record is only 2-3. But with Markstrom out, and obviously he started the last 3 games for Calgary. So Dustin Wolf right now is going to be a peripheral. Maybe if Vladar starts to really struggle, you look to him. But for now, I'm looking at Vladar, and he looked good against the best team in the league in Edmonton. So that was enough for me to dig into this a little bit. He's also very much out there. I think it's like 2% on ESPN, 9 on Yahoo. Chicago Blackhawks this week. Blue Jackets and Blues for the Calgary Flames. A Calgary Flames team that, they just lost to Edmonton, but it was a close game, and they're playing a lot better hockey. All of those reasons, if you need a little goalie help, Dan Vladar is right there at the top of my list for all of those reasons. Now, bets, Monday night. Let's have at it. 6-game betting board. Been a bit of an up and down ride for both Steele and I, but I have a really good feeling about tonight, and you know I'm going back to the number 1 on the board. Pittsburgh Penguins, by the way, in their last 10 games against this Arizona Coyotes team, how about 10-0? Loving that angle, number 1. So there I just tipped you off. Penguins on the money line, that's pick number 1. You know, when I talk about this Pittsburgh Penguins club, I talk about one of my favorite players to ever play the game in Sidney Crosby. And yeah, maybe it sounds boring, guys, but Sidney Crosby anytime assist hits for me all day. He's having another great season. He is one of the best to ever do it. That doesn't mean anything, but when you dig into the numbers, how about against Arizona? 23 career regular season games played, 23 assists. So pick number 2, you know where I'm coming from, baby. Sidney Crosby, anytime assist. That's pick number 2. I am really loving these bets. The Vegas Golden Knights over the last 3 games have looked like the Vegas Golden Knights team that we have come to expect, the Cup champs. They're dealing with a number of key injuries. Amadio, Hill, Theodore, Eichel, Carlson. Those are all important pieces. They're starting to get healthy. Aiden Hill is questionable, but Logan Thompson has been holding it down over the last 3 games. 3 wins, posting a save percentage well above .950 in all 3 of those. Logan Thompson, I don't know if he is in the cage, but he probably is. Those last 3 games as well, neat and tidy wins. 4-1 against Nashville, 5-1 against the Rangers, and a tight one against Pittsburgh, 3-2. Lock of the night, Vegas Golden Knights. I'm feeling this one in a very, very big way. Rolling into a New Jersey Devils team that actually is also dealing with injuries, but has been a disappointment this year. They win a nice game, they win 1 or 2, then they lose 1 or 2. It's been very back and forth. Ugly 6-2 loss in their last one against Dallas. Backing the Knights in a very, very big way for the lock of the night. I'm going to put all of these in a parlay. I hope you do the same. I hope you continue to enjoy our episodes Monday through Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in for the Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Make sure you're checking out the Locked On 24/7 streaming service, the first ever non-stop sports YouTube channel. Locked On's got you covered 24/7. Make sure you're checking that out. Thank you so much for joining me for the Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We'll see you tomorrow.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com, code LOCKEDON. That's JamesAllen.com, code LOCKEDON.
Attention hockey fans looking for NHL news and analysis? Look no further than the Locked On NHL podcast, offering daily insights on all the top NHL stories. From trade deadline and free agency rumors, teams on the rise, and discussion on the league's biggest stars, Locked On NHL has you covered for 30 minutes, 5 days a week. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.